With related rates, the first thing that I really need you to know is that the variable that you are differentiating with respect to is t. So what we're going to do, if we already have an equation in the given information, we're going to jump right to differentiating with respect to t the whole related rates equation, or the whole equation. So you have xy plus x is equal to 12, and you're differentiating with respect to time. Now, something that I really want to point out here is that when you're taking the derivative, you are going to have to, because this mismatch with x and also with y, you're going to have to multiply anytime you differentiate by x prime and y prime. And we talked about how you can use the x prime notation, or you can use the dx dt notation and the dy dt notation. So either is fine. Now, the other thing that's really important to notice with this first term is that with this first term, you have a variable here multiplied by another variable. So anytime you have a variable times a variable, you got to go into the product rule. I mean, there's just no way out of this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the product rule. Our first function will be x, and our second function will be y. Now, when we take the derivative of x, we have to multiply by x prime. So yes, the derivative of x is 1, but then we have to multiply by x prime or dx dt and just say it's x prime. And then for our second function, the derivative of y would be 1, and then we multiply by y prime. All right, so plugging into the product rule, we'll do our little cross and then add the two. So we will have y times x prime, so y times 1x prime, so we just get yx prime, plus, and then this diagonal will give us x, y prime. Then we add that to the derivative of x, which is just 1, but then I just differentiated, so I got to multiply by x prime. And that's equal to 12's derivative, which would be 0. Now, once you take the derivative, then you are going to plug in any quantities that you know. So when you look at this question here at the very top, they told you that y was equal to 5. So we'll plug that in. They told us that dx dt, which is our x prime, is equal to -3. They didn't tell us x, which is, oh no, they did tell us x, excuse me. They told us x was equal to 2, so let's plug that in. And then they didn't tell us y prime. And then they told us that x prime was equal to -3, is equal to 0. All right, so the great news about this is that when you look at this equation, you have one unknown and one equation, so you can solve very nicely for this. So what you would have here is you would have -15 plus 2y prime minus 3 is equal to 0. So combining the -15 and the -3 together, you get -18 plus 2y prime is equal to 0, and this is just solving for y prime. So add 18 to both sides, divide by 2, and we get y prime is equal to 9. So that is solving for y prime, and that would be our final answer.